All right, thanks a lot, Tisha. So a lot of people are wondering exactly what does it take to be a nominee in the general election. So Jabari is going to walk through exactly what they need to file their nomination papers.
Well, Kejan, according to the Representation of the People's Act, each candidate needs a deposit of $5,000.
Which Philip Alexander found out today he could not bring in cash as he did in Diego Martin West. He had to go back to the bank to get that in the form of a bank draft.
No candidate must have any mental illness. The candidate must be a resident of Trinidad and Tobago for at least a year prior to their nomination, and they must have the signatures of 6 electors.
And so we're going to assume that the Prime Minister has all of this. And Jules, you spoke to her today. What was her mood when she filed the nomination papers?
The Prime Minister was clearly in good spirits. Of course, having served as the MP for Superior since 1995, the Prime Minister filed her nomination papers and officially became the UNC's candidate for that constituency yet again today. The Prime Minister walked from her constituency office to the returning officer's office, a distance of 600 meters, accompanied by her special branch detail, of course, Tassa drummers, a music truck, and party supporters, the usual business on nomination day. The media was only allowed to film the Prime Minister greeting the returning officer, but not the actual interview.
Superior has given me tremendous support over the years in opposition, in government, and I'm very honoured that they have asked me once again to be their representative. So I'm happy to be a candidate. I am also very happy to report that all 41 candidates of the partnership have filed their nomination.
We also sought a comment from the Prime Minister about the changes she has made to the UNC lineup for General Election 2015, which has seen some familiar faces like Stacey Rupnarine replaced by some new ones like Vidya Gopi Singh.
We have a very mature team, but at the same time we have some younger ones. I feel very comfortable with the team. And what is more important, it is a very diverse set of candidates that represent Trinidad and Tobago, every age, creed, race, in every regard.
All right, and of course, Fane, there's not just the Prime Minister, it's the person who wants to be the Prime Minister, Dr. Keith Rowley. You spoke to him today. What was that like?
Yes, and unlike the experience Jewel would have had with the Prime Minister, his entourage was really low-key. Dr. Rowley making this trek to the returning officer's office for the 9th time in his political career. He began the 10-minute walk from his constituency office on Lahawkett Valley Road in Glencoe, and despite this being a candidate not just for Diego Martin West, but for Prime Minister essentially, there was very little fanfare, very small entourage of supporters, no musical accompaniment, but the mood among the small contingent was buoyant. There were bursts of singing at times, and Dr. Rowley acknowledged supporters who were driving by and stumbled on this PNM procession just heading down the main road, some of the drivers rolling down their windows to wish him well. Waiting for him inside the Point Cumana Regional Complex was returning officer Luna Wright, and within 15 minutes, Dr. Rowley emerged with his bundle of documents approved. He praised the EBC for a flawless process.
While we have very aggressive, competitive local politics, we do have an Election and Boundaries Commission that holds the process up to best practice. I'm very happy that the Election and Boundaries Commission is doing such a fine job.
But just to rewind back to Philip Alexander, who we mentioned earlier, he went to file his nomination papers because he's facing Dr. Rowley in Diego Martin West, and the two came face to face. And Philip Alexander having to take a little bit of peek-on from the PNM supporters.
I want to give you the utmost assurance, and I want to make it categorically clear to you, you would lose your deposit. We exchanged greetings. He said the most important thing is to take part in the process, and I agree. And I said that this morning. We have a lot of people involved in the politics of Trinidad and Tobago. We have a lot of parties involved in the politics of Trinidad and Tobago that are not willing to go this step, to come and pay the deposit, file the nomination papers, and come on the ground and deal with the constituents.
And that little back and forth there, we saw that in a few more constituencies as well. I was in the St. Joseph constituency, which is in Aranguez actually, and you had that similar clash between the UNC and the PNM because they both came at the same time, and you would have seen that this actual Tassa showdown where you had the PNM on one side, the UNC on one side, and Tassa showdown, and this level of camaraderie. And in all this time, you start to think that there's this level of anger between the two parties, but they're all good. As well as Terence Dial Singh and Vasan Bharat, they both came together and they did everything. But let's move across to the Tunapuna seat. That's where you had that similar sense of sportsmanship, if that's what you want to call it. So these are the marginal seats that we're talking about here. Esmond Ford for Tunapuna, Wayne Monroe, they met up in Tunapuna today. They also shook hands. And they were, very cordial to each other, just saying, well, good luck, good luck. But the Esmond Ford, he actually took some time to throw a little jab in at the UNC candidate because he didn't know who it was until as late as last night.
Yeah, just announced.
Right, so this is what he had to say about that.
Is it confirmed that he is the opponent?
Well,
because
we'll have to wait till
I came first, right? Because again, we wanted to be first. Again, I trust that the individual that was announced day before yesterday will be the person that is coming today. And if it's Mr. Wayne Monroe, I wish him all the best. Actually, he resides 3 houses away from where I was born at 53 Fairley Street. Very interesting.
So
competition comes
their
close to
neighborhood
home.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So there's like neighbor versus neighbor in this sense. Wayne Monroe, if you don't know much about him, he's an economist, a part-time UWI lecturer. If you've spoken to people on the ground, they know him as being a very kind person in the constituency. His name, of course, again, only came up on Friday. So here's what he had to say.
There's some issue between you and Hamlin Jailal, and this was a person who was given as early as last week. And now here you are today. Do you think that will help or hurt you? Any comments on that?
My campaign, are you referring to my campaign manager, the best campaign manager in Tunapuna?
So, that's the thing. So whether or not it was you or him, what is the story there? What happened there?
Well, one team. We are one team. Everybody's on board, and we're looking at moving forward to serve the people of Tunapuna and serve the people of Tunapuna.
All right, if we move on to another marginal seat, San Fernando West, Razia Ahmed, former Senate President, she actually resigned as the Senate President today. That came in a press release coming from the Parliament website today. Of course, she was the Senate President appointed on February 3rd this year, and several times she would have acted as the President. So now we were talking earlier, Jabari, about whether or not...
Wondering what would happen.
What does this mean? Does it mean that the President can't leave the country? Does this mean the President can't die?
Yeah.
But she didn't answer that question, but she did speak about her chances.
Which we began 2 days ago, and the nation will decide. San Fernando West belongs to us.
Do you see yourself as a disadvantage having 21 years of campaign seat whereby your main rival?
I've never seen anything as a disadvantage in my life. Everything works for me.
And Julie would have spoken to the Prime Minister about the appointment of Razia Ahmed. What did she say about it?
The Prime Minister said that under the Constitution there was nothing debarring either the person serving as the Senate President or any member of the Senate becoming a candidate if they accept a candidacy. The Prime Minister said that that was a situation that the government looked at. They wrote to the President of the Republic, and that was a situation that there's no issue concerning the person being the Senate President being a candidate. Now, also, you had a situation in Pointe-à-Pierre with Dr. David Lee, where the Prime Minister said that there's no issue of him being a dual citizen. That is something that came up during the screening process, and the Prime Minister said that there's no issue there that disqualifies him from being a candidate.
All right, and also in San Fernando West, no surprise, PDM's Faisal Rowley and Randall Mitchell, who is coming for San Fernando East, they worked with their very large contingent, and Faisal Rowley was one of the first names announced by the PNM. Of course, he's saying now he's being antsy about who his opponent was, and now he's saying it's disrespectful that his opponent came so late.
Fortunately, disrespectful to introduce a candidate into the election 3 weeks to go who can have no real appreciation of what concerns San Fernandians.
You know, Kejan, over the years, Botiwari has always been one of those persons who's had questions about his commitment to the COP. He says he was the mutually acceptable candidate between the COP and the UNC. I had the opportunity to throw some questions to him. UNC party rules say that members are only eligible to contest a seat once they've been with the party for at least a year.
Dr. Tiwari, your shirt is white, but it seems your heart is yellow.
Well, all I would say is that I am the classic unity candidate.
Mr. Ramadan must have felt a little disappointed about that, did he?
No, I can't speak for anybody else.
How much blows went down at that nomination, at that discussion meeting?
Well, I don't know. You have too negative a view of these things, you know. I mean, the world is a complicated place. No, I'm not a member of the UNC.
And well, Dr. Tiwari's colleague in Shogunas West, which could turn out to be the UNC prodigal seat, is defending the decision to have him contest under the UNC. He says the political leader is powerful, but didn't want to list out the powers that she does have.
Dr. Tiwari is a partnership candidate, and that therefore the rules allow for that within the evolution of the rules.
Was that taken to the General Council of the UNC?
That is a matter that you have to direct to the General Secretary of the UNC.
Was that a matter of the Prime Minister having veto power on the political leader?
That is a matter you have to direct to the General Secretary of the UNC.
So the Prime Minister had final say there?
You have to direct that. In any organization, the leader has certain powers.
And well, guys, Jack Warner, the leader of the ILP, is still convinced that whoever is to become Prime Minister must have his support. Meeting all the nomination requirements, of course, he gave a clue as to where his support would lie if there's a tie. And on his vote, a Prime Minister would rely.
We want to make sure that our supporters and members who are there, we want to tell them who not to vote for.
So you're encouraging them to support the PNM, is it?
I'm telling them not to vote for the UNC.
So that's a vote for the PNM?
Well, all right. I mean,
I'm asking.
But you are smart fella, Jabari.
Where will you carry your power?
I will not support the UNC.
So you've been in formal talks with the PNM as yet?
Well, I have not told you that. I say I will not support the UNC. And why did you John B. so?